The morning sun cast long shadows across the naval base as Commander Ghost walked through the gates of Naval Station Norfolk. 23 years of service had taught him to read the tension in the air, and today it was thick enough to cut with a knife. The base buzzed with unusual activity. Extra security checkpoints, hurried conversations between officers, and the unmistakable presence of high-ranking officials who rarely showed their faces on the main deck. Earned his nickname Ghost during his early days as a submarine officer. He had an uncanny ability to navigate the most dangerous waters undetected, slipping past enemy surveillance like a phantom in the depths. His crew would joke that he could make a nuclear submarine disappear in a bathtub, but the nickname carried weight beyond his tactical skills. Had a reputation for appearing where he was needed most, often at the most critical moments, as if summoned by the very essence of duty itself. The call had come at 500 hours. Report to Admiral Blackwood immediately. No explanation, no context, just the cold efficiency of military communication. Knew Admiral Jonathan Blackwood by reputation only. The man was a legend in naval circles, having served in operations that were still classified decades later. Blackwood was known for his steel nerves and calculating mind, someone who had stared down international crises without flinching. As approached the administrative building, he noticed the unusual security presence. Marines stood at attention with a precision that suggested something far beyond routine protocol. The windows of the building were tinted darker than usual, and electronic jamming equipment hummed quietly in the background. Whatever was happening inside those walls was meant to stay there. The elevator ride to the top floor felt longer than usual. Reviewed his recent missions in his mind, searching for anything that might warrant such high-level attention. His last assignment had been routine patrol duty in the Atlantic, monitoring Russian submarine movements near the continental shelf. Standard intelligence gathering, nothing that should have triggered this level of response. The elevator doors opened to reveal a corridor lined with officers recognized from intelligence briefings. These weren't regular Navy personnel. These were the shadows, the ones who operated in the gray areas between official policy and national necessity. Their presence confirmed what had begun to suspect. This wasn't about routine naval matters. A young lieutenant escorted to a conference room where Admiral Blackwood sat alone at the head of a polished oak table. The Admiral was exactly as had imagined, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that commanded respect without demanding it. But there was something else in Blackwood's expression, something hadn't expected to see in a man of his reputation. Concern, deep, carefully controlled concern. Admiral Blackwood gestured for to sit without the usual military formalities. This was already unusual. In his experience, admirals didn't skip protocol unless the situation was extraordinary. The room was sparse except for a single manila folder placed precisely in front of the admiral's position. No computers, no recording equipment, no other personnel. This was to be a conversation that officially never happened. Blackwood studied for a long moment, as if weighing something significant. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. Had been in enough high-stakes situations to know when to speak and when to wait. This was clearly a time to wait. Finally, Admiral Blackwood opened the manila folder. Inside were satellite photographs, intelligence reports, and what appeared to be intercepted communications. The images showed naval vessels in configurations didn't immediately recognize, but the strategic implications were clear even from a glance. This was about more than routine patrol duty. The Admiral's voice, when he finally spoke, carried the weight of classified knowledge and difficult decisions. He explained that in the past 72 hours, intelligence had detected unusual activity in international waters. Foreign naval forces were positioning themselves in patterns that suggested something beyond standard military exercises. The nature of their movements indicated they were searching for something or someone. Listened as Admiral Blackwood outlined a situation that was rapidly escalating beyond normal diplomatic channels. Recent submarine encounters had revealed that enemy forces possessed intelligence they shouldn't have. Someone with intimate knowledge of American naval operations was feeding information to foreign powers. The implications were staggering. Years of strategic planning compromised, submarine routes exposed, and the lives of countless potentially at risk. As the briefing continued, began to understand why he had been summoned. His expertise in submarine warfare, combined with his intelligence background, made him uniquely qualified to investigate this security breach. But there was something more, something Admiral Blackwood hadn't yet revealed. The tension in the room suggested that this mission would require more than technical expertise. It would require someone willing to operate in the shadows, someone who could become a ghost when necessary. Admiral Blackwood closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. The morning light filtering through the reinforced windows cast sharp angles across his weathered face, highlighting the gravity of what he was about to reveal. Had seen that expression before during classified briefings where the stakes were measured in lives rather than strategic advantages. This was about to become personal. The Admiral began with a question that seemed routine but carried underlying significance. He asked about recent interactions with personnel from other naval commands. Had anyone approached him with unusual requests for information? Had he noticed any changes in communication protocols or security procedures? The questions were methodical, professional, but sensed they were building toward something specific. Answered honestly, his recent months had been focused on standard patrol duties and training exercises. He had interacted with the usual network of naval personnel, intelligence officers, and technical specialists. Nothing had seemed out of the ordinary, no red flags or suspicious behavior. But as he spoke, began to notice a pattern in Admiral Blackwood's questions. They were all focused on submarine operations, specifically those involving classified sensor technology and underwater surveillance systems. The revelation came gradually, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. Admiral Blackwood explained that the security breach wasn't just about stolen information. Someone had been systematically compromising submarine missions for at least 18 months. Patrol routes that should have been secret were being anticipated by foreign vessels. Advanced sonar signatures that took years to develop were showing up in enemy databases. Most troubling of all, 3 separate submarine crews had reported near-miss encounters that suggested their positions were known before they arrived at their designated coordinates. Felt a chill run down his spine as the implications became clear. Submarine warfare depended entirely on stealth and surprise. If enemy forces could predict American submarine movements, the entire strategic balance of power was at risk. Worse yet, the lives of his fellow submariners hung in the balance with every compromised mission. Admiral Blackwood pulled out another folder. This one thicker and marked with security classifications had rarely seen outside of the Pentagon. Inside were detailed analyses of the compromised operations, complete with timeline reconstructions and personnel reviews. The investigation had been ongoing for months, conducted by the most elite intelligence units in the Navy. They had narrowed the source of the leak to a small group of personnel with access to the most sensitive submarine operation details. The list included 15 names, recognized most of them, experienced officers, decorated veterans, people he had served alongside and trusted with his life. The idea that one of them might be betraying their country and their fellow sailors was almost incomprehensible. But the evidence was undeniable. Someone in this group was feeding critical information to foreign intelligence services. Admiral Blackwood's next words changed everything. The investigation had reached a critical juncture. Traditional surveillance and internal security measures had failed to identify the traitor. The person responsible was too skilled, too careful, and too familiar with Navy security protocols to be caught through conventional means. They needed someone to go undercover, someone who could infiltrate the suspect group without raising suspicion. This was where his unique background became crucial. His reputation as Ghost wasn't just about his submarine skills. Over the years, he had developed expertise in intelligence gathering and covert operations. He had worked with Special Forces units on missions that officially never happened, operations that required him to assume false identities and operate without the usual support structures of military hierarchy. The mission Admiral Blackwood was proposing was unlike anything had faced before. He would need to maintain his regular duties while secretly investigating his fellow officers. The emotional toll would be enormous. These weren't strangers or foreign operatives. They were people he had trained with, served alongside, and considered friends. One of them was betraying everything they had sworn to protect. Admiral Blackwood outlined the operational parameters, would be given a new assignment that would bring him into regular contact with all 15 suspects. His cover story was already prepared. He was being transferred to a special projects division focused on next-generation submarine technology. This would give him access to the same classified information that was being leaked, while also providing opportunities to observe the behavior and communication patterns of potential traitors. The most dangerous aspect of the mission was that would essentially be painting a target on himself. If the traitor suspected they were being investigated, would become a threat that needed to be eliminated. The person they were hunting had already demonstrated a willingness to compromise the safety of American submarines and their crews. They wouldn't hesitate to eliminate one more obstacle. As the briefing continued, learned about the sophisticated methods being used to transfer information. The traitor wasn't simply copying documents or sending emails. They were using advanced techniques, coded messages embedded in routine communications, dead drops at seemingly innocent locations, and even modifications to official reports that appeared insignificant but contained valuable intelligence for anyone who knew how to read them. Admiral Blackwood emphasized that this investigation went far beyond catching a single spy. The intelligence being leaked was so detailed and current that it suggested a larger network might be involved. The person they were hunting might be just one part of a more extensive operation designed to cripple American submarine capabilities from within. Accepted the mission, but not without understanding the personal cost. He would be lying to people he respected, investigating friends he trusted, and risking his life in a game where the rules were written by enemies who had no honor. But the alternative was worse, allowing a traitor to continue compromising the safety of American submarines and the sailors who served aboard them. 3 weeks into his undercover assignment, had established himself within the Special Projects Division without arousing suspicion. His new role gave him access to the most sensitive submarine technology development programs, including advanced sonar systems, stealth hull designs, and next-generation nuclear propulsion systems. Every day brought him into contact with the 15 suspects, each interaction a careful dance of observation and deception. The division operated from a secure facility 20 miles from the main naval base. The building was unremarkable from the outside: gray concrete walls, tinted windows, and the kind of industrial architecture designed to blend into the surrounding business district. Inside, however, it housed some of the Navy's most crucial technological developments. The irony wasn't lost on that he was protecting secrets while hunting someone who was selling them. Had developed a methodical approach to his investigation. He studied the communication patterns of each suspect, noting who had access to which classified materials and when. He observed their behavior during classified briefings, looking for signs of stress, unusual interest in specific information, or subtle attempts to gather intelligence beyond their assigned responsibilities. Most importantly, he tracked the timing of their activities against the known instances of information leakage. Commander Sarah was his first serious suspect. A brilliant engineer who specialized in sonar technology, she had access to exactly the kind of information that was being compromised. Noticed that she often stayed late, supposedly working on technical specifications, but her computer access logs showed activity in databases beyond her project requirements. She was careful, methodical, and had the technical skills to cover her digital tracks. During a joint briefing on new acoustic signature reduction technology, observed reactions closely. When classified specifications were discussed, she took notes with unusual detail, asking technical questions that seemed designed to elicit additional sensitive information. Her behavior fit the profile of someone gathering intelligence for external purposes. But his investigation was complicated by a disturbing discovery. The more he learned about the leaked information, the more he realized that the security breach went beyond simple espionage. The timing and nature of the compromised intelligence suggested that someone was actively working to undermine specific submarine operations. This wasn't just about stealing technology. It was about sabotaging American naval capabilities in real time. Lieutenant Commander David Park presented another compelling lead. A communications specialist with extensive knowledge of encrypted submarine communication protocols, Park had been present at several classified meetings where subsequently compromised information was discussed. Noticed that Park had a habit of taking personal calls during breaks in classified briefings, always stepping outside and speaking in hushed tones. The timing was suspicious, but the behavior could also be explained by personal circumstances. His investigation took a dangerous turn when he discovered evidence of sophisticated counter-surveillance measures being employed by someone within the group. Digital traces were being systematically erased, security camera footage was being manipulated, and communication logs were being altered. Whoever they were hunting was aware that they might be under investigation and was taking active steps to conceal their activities. The breakthrough came during a routine inspection of classified document handling procedures, was reviewing access logs for a recent intelligence briefing when he noticed an anomaly. Someone had accessed the classified database 47 minutes after the official briefing ended. The access was brief but comprehensive, covering exactly the material that had subsequently been compromised. The timestamp pointed to a specific terminal, and the user authentication belonged to Commander Michael Torres. Torres was a decorated submarine officer with 15 years of exemplary service. His record was spotless, his loyalty unquestioned, and his access to sensitive information extensive. He specialized in underwater navigation systems and had been involved in developing several of the technologies that were being compromised. If Torres was the traitor, it would explain both the scope and the precision of the intelligence leakage. Began focusing his surveillance on Torres, but what he discovered was deeply troubling. Torres wasn't just accessing classified information. He was photographing specific documents and technical specifications. Observed him using a miniature camera disguised as a pen to capture images of submarine navigation charts and sonar system blueprints. The evidence was undeniable, but the implications were staggering. Torres had been involved in planning several of the submarine operations that had been compromised. His betrayal hadn't just exposed American technological capabilities. It had directly endangered the lives of submarine crews who trusted him with their safety. The near-miss encounters that other submarines had experienced weren't accidents or coincidences. They were the direct result of Torres providing enemy forces with precise information about American submarine positions and patrol routes. As gathered evidence against Torres, he discovered the sophisticated network that supported the espionage operation. Torres wasn't working alone. He was part of a carefully orchestrated intelligence operation that included contacts at multiple naval facilities and connections to foreign intelligence services. The scope of the network explained how they had been able to evade detection for so long and why their intelligence was so current and accurate. The most disturbing aspect of his investigation was learning about the payment structure for the espionage operation. Torres wasn't motivated by ideology or political beliefs. He was being paid enormous sums of money for specific pieces of intelligence. Bank records that access through intelligence channels showed regular deposits from offshore accounts, payments that corresponded directly to major intelligence compromises. Realized that Torres had essentially been selling the lives and safety of American submarine crews for personal profit. The moral implications were staggering, but the immediate practical concern was even more urgent. This investigation had revealed that Torres was planning to transfer information about an upcoming classified submarine operation, one that would put an entire crew at risk if the intelligence fell into enemy hands. The operation was scheduled for the following week. Had to act quickly to prevent another compromise, but he also had to be careful not to alert Torres or the broader network to the fact that they had been discovered. The balance between gathering enough evidence to ensure prosecution and preventing immediate harm to American naval operations required precise timing and flawless execution. Knew that his next moves would determine not only the success of his investigation, but potentially the lives of the submariners who would be carrying out the classified Operation Torres, was planning to compromise. Knew he had to act fast, but Torres was proving to be more cautious than expected. The commander had apparently sensed that something was different in the facility's atmosphere. He was varying his routines, taking different routes through the building, and being more selective about which classified materials he accessed. Realized that his surveillance might have been detected, which meant the entire operation was at risk. The classified submarine operation that Torres was planning to compromise was designated Deep Current. It involved the USS Nevada, a nuclear submarine that would be conducting surveillance operations in contested waters near the South China Sea. The mission was crucial for understanding foreign naval capabilities in the region, but it would also put the Nevada's crew of 138 sailors directly in harm's way if their position was revealed to enemy forces. Faced an impossible dilemma. If he moved too quickly to arrest Torres, he might not have enough evidence to dismantle the entire espionage network. But if he waited too long, the Nevada would sail into what amounted to a trap. The submarine was scheduled to depart in 72 hours, which meant had a narrow window to gather the evidence he needed while preventing the intelligence compromise. Working with Admiral Blackwood's intelligence team, devised a complex plan. They would feed Tor's false information about Operation Deep Current while secretly monitoring his communication channels. If Tor's attempted to pass along the false intelligence, they would have definitive proof of his espionage activities and potentially identify his contacts in the foreign intelligence network. The false information was carefully crafted to be believable but ultimately harmless. Instead of the Nevada's actual patrol route, Tor's would be given access to charts showing a completely different area of operations. The fake intelligence included detailed sonar signatures, communication frequencies, and operational timelines that would lead enemy forces to search for the submarine in waters hundreds of miles from its actual position. Personally delivered the intelligence during a classified briefing that included Tor's and 3 other suspects. He watched Tor's carefully during the presentation, noting the commander's intense interest in the operational details and his subtle attempts to photograph specific charts and technical specifications. Tor's behavior confirmed that he was actively gathering intelligence for external purposes. Within 6 hours of the briefing, surveillance team detected unusual activity on communication channels they had been monitoring. Tor's was using a sophisticated encryption system to transmit information through seemingly innocent civilian internet connections. The technical complexity of his communication methods revealed the extent of his training and the resources available to the espionage network. But this investigation took an unexpected turn when the surveillance team detected additional transmissions coming from within the facility. Someone else was also sending encrypted communications, using different methods, but covering similar intelligence topics. The discovery meant that Tor's wasn't working alone within the Special Projects Division. At least one other person was part of the espionage network. Through careful analysis of digital forensics and communication patterns, his team identified the second spy, Dr. Lisa, a civilian contractor who worked on advanced submarine sensor systems. Had the highest level of security clearance and access to technology specifications that were even more sensitive than the operational intelligence Tor's was stealing. Her involvement explained how the espionage network had been able to provide such detailed technical information to foreign intelligence services. The discovery of his involvement revealed the sophisticated nature of the operation. Tor's was providing operational intelligence about submarine movements and missions, while was stealing the technological specifications that would allow foreign powers to develop countermeasures against American submarine capabilities. Together, they were compromising both current operations and future strategic advantages. Realized that arresting Tor's and immediately would prevent the compromise of Operation Deep Current, but it might also alert the broader network to the fact that their operation had been discovered. Intelligence analysis suggested that the network included assets at multiple naval facilities and potentially within foreign intelligence services. Shutting down the network completely would require a coordinated operation involving multiple agencies and international cooperation. Admiral Blackwood made the decision that the immediate safety of the Nevada's crew took priority over the broader intelligence operation. Was authorized to initiate the arrest phase of the operation, but he was instructed to do so in a way that might allow the investigation to continue targeting other network assets. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Would arrange for Tor's and to be arrested while attempting to transmit the false intelligence about Operation Deep Current. The arrests would appear to be the result of routine security monitoring rather than a targeted investigation, which might convince other network assets that their own operations remained secure. Coordinated with FBI counterintelligence agents and Navy security personnel to prepare for simultaneous arrests. The timing had to be precise. They needed to catch both Tor's and in the act of transmitting classified information, but they also needed to prevent any warning from reaching other network assets. The operation was scheduled for Thursday evening, when both suspects typically worked late and the facility had minimal personnel. Would remain in the building under the pretense of completing project documentation, positioning himself to observe both suspects and coordinate with the arrest teams. As Thursday evening approached, felt the familiar tension that preceded high-stakes operations. But this was different from the submarine missions he was accustomed to. Those involved clear enemies and obvious dangers. This operation required him to betray people who considered him a colleague and friend, even though they had already betrayed their country and their fellow service members. At 18:47 hours, Torres accessed his computer terminal and began the process of transmitting the false intelligence about Operation Deep Current. At the same time, Doctor was in her laboratory, photographing technical specifications for a new sonar system that didn't actually exist. Both suspects were committing acts of espionage with information that had been specifically designed to expose their activities. Gave the signal for the arrest teams to move. Within minutes, both Torres and were in custody, caught with clear evidence of their espionage activities. The investigation that had started with mysterious security breaches had successfully identified and neutralized at least part of the threat to American submarine operations. 6 months after the arrests of Torres, and found himself standing once again in Admiral Blackwood's office. But this time, the atmosphere was entirely different. The tension and secrecy that had characterized their first meeting had been replaced by the quiet satisfaction that comes with a mission accomplished. The investigation had exceeded all expectations, leading to the dismantling of an espionage network that had been operating for over 3 years. The interrogation of Torres and had revealed the full scope of the operation. The network included 12 active assets across 4 different naval facilities, 3 civilian contractors with access to classified submarine technology, and connections to intelligence services from 2 foreign powers. The financial trail alone had led to the recovery of over $4 million in payments to various network assets, money that had been used to purchase some of the Navy's most sensitive secrets. Admiral Blackwood reviewed the final intelligence assessment with. The network had been responsible for compromising 17 separate submarine operations, leading to the exposure of patrol routes, communication frequencies, sonar signatures, and technological capabilities that had taken decades to develop. The damage to national security was enormous, but the successful investigation had prevented even greater harm. Most significantly, the false intelligence operation had worked perfectly. Foreign naval forces had spent weeks searching for the USS Nevada in completely wrong areas, while the submarine successfully completed its actual mission without interference. The crew of 138 sailors never knew how close they had come to sailing into a trap that would have compromised their safety and the success of their operation. The broader implications of the investigation were still being assessed by intelligence agencies. The sophistication of the espionage network suggested that similar operations might be targeting other branches of the military and other sensitive government facilities. This investigation had provided a blueprint for identifying and neutralizing such networks, but it had also revealed how vulnerable American military installations were to insider threats. Admiral Blackwood had called to his office for a specific purpose. The success of the investigation had attracted attention at the highest levels of military and intelligence leadership. Was being offered a new assignment that would put his unique skills to use on a broader scale. The Pentagon was establishing a new unit focused specifically on counterintelligence operations, targeting insider threats within military facilities. The offer was both an honor and a burden. Would be promoted to the rank of captain and given command of a team of specialists trained in the same techniques he had used to identify Torres and. But the work would be even more demanding and dangerous than his recent investigation. He would be constantly working undercover, investigating people who were supposed to be on the same side, operating in the gray areas where loyalty and duty sometimes conflicted with friendship and personal relationships. Accepted the assignment without hesitation. The investigation had shown him how much damage a single traitor could do to national security and military operations. If his skills and experience could prevent other networks from compromising American military capabilities, the personal cost was worth it. The safety of American service members and the security of the country depended on people willing to do this kind of work. Admiral Blackwood had one final revelation. The investigation had uncovered evidence that the espionage network was planning an even more ambitious operation. They had been working to recruit assets within the submarine command structure itself, targeting officers who would have access to the most sensitive operational planning and strategic intelligence. This new unit would be tasked with identifying and neutralizing this threat before it could take root. As their meeting concluded, Admiral Blackwood asked a question that seemed routine but carried deeper significance. He wanted to know what call sign would be using for his new assignment. The question was both practical and symbolic, would need a new identity for his counterintelligence work, but the call sign would also represent his commitment to operating in the shadows to protect American military operations. Considered the question carefully. His reputation as Ghost had served him well in submarine operations, but this new assignment required something different. He needed a call sign that reflected both his ability to operate undetected and his commitment to protecting other service members from betrayal. The identity would become part of who he was, not just how others identified him. After a moment of reflection, gave his answer. He would use the call sign Guardian 5. The name reflected his role as a protector of military secrets and personnel, while the number 5 represented the 5 principles that would guide his work: loyalty to country, protection of fellow service members, commitment to truth, dedication to justice, and the willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for national security. Admiral Blackwood nodded approvingly, but noticed something unexpected in the Admiral's expression. For just a moment, the stern mask of military professionalism slipped, revealing something that looked like relief mixed with respect. It was the expression of someone who had carried a heavy burden and was grateful to share it with someone he trusted completely. As left Admiral Blackwood's office for the last time in his previous role, he understood that his life was changing in fundamental ways. He would continue serving his country, but now his battles would be fought in conference rooms and computer terminals rather than in the depths of the ocean. His enemies would wear the same uniform he did, and his greatest challenges would come from people who had sworn the same oath he had taken, but also understood the importance of his new mission. The investigation of tours and had shown him that the greatest threats to American military capabilities often came from within. Protecting the country meant more than defending against foreign enemies. It meant ensuring that the people trusted with the nation's secrets were worthy of that trust. Call sign Guardian 5 was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. His success in exposing the submarine espionage network had proven that even the most sophisticated insider threats could be identified and neutralized. Now he would apply those same skills on a larger scale, protecting American military operations from the kind of betrayal that had almost cost the crew of the USS Nevada their lives. The war for America's secrets would continue, but now it had a guardian who understood both the stakes and the cost of failure.